In today's video, we've got prep and primer. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome to episode 2 on the beach cruiser. We are moving on to prep and primer day, so it is a messy day, and as you can see I've bagged my logo off and the brush is off because the last time I used the primers on the fat tire flyer frame, you're angling your gun at all different angles and the primer's going everywhere, and I had little dots of primer over all these bits. So I've bagged the bits that are going to hit where the primer's going to hit. So we're moving on to this prep day. Now this is the key point if you are doing a bike frame or any panel that you're going to paint, is the prep. The better you can get the prep, the better your finishes will come out, because you are putting paint layers down. So the flattest surface, what you start off with, your next flattest surface, they'll all start to go flat and lay down on top of that first flat surface. If you drop paints down on an uneven surface and a bad surface, it will just show through your paint layers when you come up to clear coat. So the better you can get your prep, the better results you're going to get, guys. So we've got the frame to do. Now as you can see, this has got some knocks here, down here. We've got little gouges and scratches, gouges here, all along here. Round this side, same again, knocks, scratches down the frame here, all here on the kickstand. On the forks we've got scratches down both sides, the crank arms, scratches, the seat post is all gouged up, the bars are in a really bad state, they're all scratched and gouged. Chain guard the same, all little knocks out of it. So that's what we're dealing with today. We've got the plastic drinks holder as well. So I'm dropping 3 different primers down today. We've got one that's going to go on the frame, the forks, the crank, and then we've got a plastic primer to go down on the drinks holder, and then we've got another 2K high build primer to go on the bars, the seat post, the chain guard and the stem. But I'll take you through the primers, the mixes, the ratios and things like that a bit later on. So first thing is prep. Now, if you are doing a bike frame and you've got it stripped down like this and you're ready to move on to your prep stage, the first thing you need to do is get rid of all this. Now, as you can see, this is grease and this will be all round here. And as you know, when a chain's been on a bike and it's spinning, that grease is going everywhere. You probably don't see it on the frame now, but there'll be grease spots and all sorts over this frame. Now if you were to just start sanding this down, you are smearing that grease and you are grinding it into the paintwork that's on there, and you're just dragging it about and moving that contaminant around your frame. And then when you come to put your primer down, you'll hit it with primer and the primer will react, separate, you'll get fish eyes, things like that. It'll do some really nasty stuff. So the first thing to do, I'm going to go in with a solvent-based degreaser and absolutely douse this frame and clean every single part down first. Give it a thorough clean down, blow it all off, and then you can start sanding and going on your prep. You know, you're going down on a clean surface. So that's the first thing to do. I'll stick you on a time lapse. We'll clean all this down in solvent, get it cleaned, and then I'll talk you through the sanding grades that I'm going to use to hit this frame and the bits with. Some of the blocks and things that I've got that can be useful for when you're sanding down. So yeah, enjoy the footage, grab yourself a drink, and I'll see you in the first time lapse. all the cleaning down done on all the pieces. Give it a thorough clean down with a wax and grease remover like a panel wipe, and that will get all your contaminants off. So as you can see, all nice and clean everywhere's good to go for the next stage of the prep. We've got all the bits down there, they're all cleaned down. I took the actual chain ring off the crank, that unscrewed, and just take that off and gave the arms a good clean down. So moving on to prep, little guide for you on discs to use. Now if you've got an aluminium frame, you know that aluminium and steel, aluminium's a lot softer, so when you sand it back you tend to you can sand into it quite quick on aluminium. So if you've got gouges on parts of the frame, now usually on frames you get a lot of chips and dinks here where the chain comes off and it bangs on the frame. Sometimes you get a chain protector, that's got one on here, it's like a little sticky protector, and you'll get some little knocks and dinks up the frame. If you've got like little dents, you can fill them at this process now, so you'd sand it and then you can do your filling stages now while this is like good to go as it is. So I would start off on this frame, I'm going 180 disc all over. Knock this back in 180, all the parts in 180. If there's any bad like nicks and dents, I'll probably go down with an 80 just to get them out and then go back up to 180. Now I'm going 180 because the primers that I've got are quite thick and I can go straight down on a sanded surface of 180. If you're using aerosol primers, they're a lot thinner because they use a lot of thinners in cans to get the paint out them little nozzles. So it's very thin, the primers you get in aerosol. So if you finish your prep work off in like a 320, when you drop your aerosol primers down, you'll be good to go, and you shouldn't see any like scratch marks coming through when you build your primers up that way. So we're going to go 180. If there's any bad bits, I've got an 80, but I'll finish in 180. We've got some 320s there that I could do the chain guard with because that's quite smooth. The plastic piece, the drinks holder, I'm just going to go in with a Scotch-Brite and just scotch all that up and key it up, and that'll be good to go for the primer. So stick it on the tripod, another time lapse, and we'll get all this prepped up, and then we can move on to showing you the primers and things like that. See you in a bit. Right guys, we've got all the prep done. I didn't put you on the time lapse for the frame, but we've got the frame finished, 180'd all over, and where there was some deep bits I just went back and just knocked it right back, but a lot of this was light scratches over this, and the actual primer that we're putting on this next has got really good build quality on it, so any little dinks and imperfections, this next primer will fill all this. We've got the bars. The actual coating on these parts was terrible. It was so thin, just literally went straight through. So we've sanded all the bars back, so they're good. The stem, cleaned all that up and sanded that back. Knocked back all the bits on the pedal arms, chain guard, Scotch-Brighted the drinks holder, forks. So everything's prepped. Now primers that we're going to be using for the frame and the forks, I'm using a polyester high build primer. That's in white, that will cover all this frame, any little imperfections, so that's the frame and the forks. For the drinks holder, we're using Standox plastic primer. For the bars, the stem and the seat post, we're using an industrial epoxy primer because that's going down to more of a raw steel on that. We're going to polyester the arms of these, both arms, and drop the epoxy on the chain guard. So 3 different primers to get this job done. I'm using the epoxy that I'm using on the bars, the seat post and the stem. I can put a nice thin coat down and then we can do that a light sand over. Because these bars slide through the stem like that, I don't want too much of a thick coat of paint. Got to keep the layers nice and thin right up to the clear coat so we can slide these bars into the stem. If you go too thick, you're just going to gouge all your paintwork as you go through. Same as the seat post. Nice good coats, but keep it nice and light so the seat tube has got room to slide in the actual frame. So that's next up. We'll give this another good thorough clean down with wax and grease remover, mask off any bits that we don't want to get any paint on, and then we'll start the primers. So I'll see you in the clean down stage. There you go guys, that's the primer stage done on these pieces. I dropped the plastic primer on the drinks holder, so that one's done, and then I moved on to the epoxy. So we've got the epoxy primer down on the seat post, the stem, the chain guard and the handlebars, and then I mixed up some polyester primer, which is a real thick high build. I had to use the 1.8 setup for that, and we dropped some good coats of the polyester down on the frame, the forks and the crank arms. So they're all complete guys. So I hope you can join me in episode 3 when we go through the next stage of the prep on these pieces before we can start putting the colours down. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget, if you're new to the channel, click that subscribe, press that notification, drop us a thumbs up, and I'll see you in part 3. Cheers guys.